Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to another Life's Little Gold Nuggets. This is from H.W. Brand's book, The First American, The Life and Times of Benjamin Franklin. And there are just a few things that I thought were worth sharing. Benjamin Franklin, founding father of the United States, was kind of one of the older ones when the country was first starting, since he was born a little bit before everybody else. So kind of like the overarching father of the founding fathers, maybe even say founding grandfather at that point. But of course, like everybody else, he's checkered with different things, whether who he was as a politician, what he was outside of the office. But today we're just going to look at a few things that he talked about that to me makes sense and how it can work as being a therapist sharing this information. First, what he talks about is grumblers there will always be among you, where power and places are worth striving for. All those who cannot obtain them are angry with all that stand in their way. This is right when the country is first starting to form, and some people talk about what should be an appropriate list of grievances and what's not appropriate, and what is, should the government take all these things seriously? And Benjamin Franklin is saying, well, you're always going to have people that complain. And that is very true no matter what age of society you live in. The more that you read history, I've just gotten on a big history kick, which is why you've been seeing a lot of these videos about either ancient literature or ancient philosophers, or a lot of them have just been American presidents and other historical figures. And there have always been grumblers. No matter how long, how short your life is, no matter where you live, there's always people that will grumble and complain about what's going on. And that is okay, because it is okay to admit no system of government, no system made by man is ever going to be perfect. It's not going to work for everybody all the time, 24/7. If it was that easy, we already would have accomplished it. With as much as we've gained in our world and in our humanity, if we had had the ability to find it by this point, I think we would have. But there are always going to be grumblers who are going to have problems with how you might do things. And as a therapist, I say the same thing. It's like you might be trying to build a better life for yourself, and yet there are people who are throwing nothing but cautions, or are trying to do everything that they can to be like, you don't need to be doing that. That's such a waste of your time, or such a whatever. And I'm not saying that you 100% ignore it, but if all you're hearing is grumbling, grumbling, and grumbling, it's okay to also say, well, if everybody else is grumbling, what do I still need to do? And if you still tell yourself, hey, I think that that's still worth doing, then go for it. Give it a try. Of course, within limits, appropriateness. I can't say that this applies with every single context, but something like if you're wanting to start a business, it's risky. Everybody's gonna, most people are going to complain and be like, how are you gonna afford it? How are you gonna find help? How are you gonna do all these things? And those are some very serious questions. But just as we actually heard from the last video talking about Thomas Jefferson's idea of pragmatics in government, is it's got to be practicable. So if you just keep talking about it, well, everybody can throw out ideas. But if you have a business idea, put it into action. Give it a try. And answer those questions as you go, because you're not going to have all the answers right off the bat. But same thing too also when I talk about family members, when I'm doing family counseling or couples counseling, there will always be grumblers, because how you live your life with your family members, or in a romantic sense your partner, it is not always going to feel good for them or you. If it's always feeling good for you, I would really much question that idea of like, how risky are you being in your relationships, and how much are you willing to sacrifice? Because if you're not feeling uncomfortable by what is being asked of you, then I would be concerned to say, well, more often than not, at least I cannot say for my own marriage or with my own children that like I, trying to love them is harder. And so, and then there's a lot of grumbling, whether from me or from them, because the system that we're doing is not perfect, it's not fair, and I can't take care of all those things. But the more that I can work with them and work with the grumbling, which kind of sort of also fits into the next quote too from Benjamin Franklin, actually, that I'm wanting to do for this video, is wise governments encouraged the airing of grievances, even those that were lightly founded. Foolish governments did the opposite, to their peril. Where complaining becomes a crime, hope becomes despair. As annoying as I sometimes find it to be, yes, even focusing on the little things, even on the little grievances, it's really helpful to let those little grievances be aired and to really give them space to be there. We don't just want to shut it down being like, well, that is totally irrelevant, or no, that is not necessary here, or that doesn't need to be talked about. To be able to allow those grievances to be aired can really just forge more connection. Yes, there's a chance too that it can be misconnection or disconnection, but the chance for connection to happen is going to be higher when you can truly air the grievances. And so instead of thinking about a problem, to me, I think about this as parents with children when they are complaining about things that we think in the grand scheme of things, it's so little, it's so tiny. And yet to them, it is such a big deal. You've got to model what it's like to say, oh my goodness, tell me more about that. Tell me how that's worrying you. Tell me how that's bothering you. Golly, that's tough. I wonder what you're going to be able to do about that. Or I wonder if there's anything I can do to help. Because the more that you can allow that space for those questions to be there, it doesn't always mean that they're going to get an answer, but even just being able to air it, even just being able to get it off their chest and to share it with you, that really means a lot to kids. It also means a lot to us as we grow up and become adults. It doesn't really change. We just become big kids with, larger bodies, but the same heart that a child has. So yeah, just a little bit of wisdom from Ben Franklin today, but mainly just that idea that grumblers are always going to be there, no matter where you are, no matter what you're trying to do, how you're trying to build a government, how you're trying to build a business, how you're trying to build a family, how you're trying to build anything else. Grumblers will always be there. But he goes on to say also, a good government or a good set of authority does allow small grievances to be brought up. It still takes wisdom to work through them and to not let them become so much the focus that you lose sight of the actual goal. But to allow those grievances to be aired and shared, the more helpful that this can be. So, and I applaud, as a therapist, I would say the same thing of like, yeah, when I have parents who are just like, oh my gosh, my kids are just always complaining about things, or they're always just talking and processing things, and I'm like, well, yeah, because their brains are just taking it all in. And more often than not, they just want the space to be able to do so. But if you keep trying to hammer at them like, oh, that's illogical. Oh, you don't have to be worried about that. Oh, you don't have to whatever. Like, it's probably not going to help, or else if it would have helped, it already would have helped before. So allow those grievances to be there. Allow them to be felt and to be experienced and to be shared, and to model what it's like to say, all is welcome here. And it's not going to be judged, it's not going to be turned away, and it's not going to be unwelcomed. All right. Thank you guys so much, and hope you have a great rest of your day.